Welcome to NARAL's The Morning After. Each week, our podcast brings you the latest on reproductive health care, progressive politics, and the fight to keep abortion safe and legal. You can listen to the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Podbean, YouTube, and on our website at prochoiceohio.org. The program also airs each Friday morning at 9 on WGRN 94.1 in Columbus, Ohio. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at ProChoiceOH. NARAL's The Morning After is a production of NARAL Pro-Choice Ohio. Enjoy the show.
I'm Gabe.
And I'm Jaime.
Watched the debate last night?
Yeah, some of it. Kind of over them. There's too many people on stage. There's not enough time to actually get into depth on actual questions.
There are too many people on the stage. Yeah. So we're not making any endorsements. We're not speaking on behalf of NARAL Pro-Choice Ohio as we do the NARAL Pro-Choice Ohio podcast. But, Tom Steyer raised some excellent points on climate change. Mm-hmm. And I think he'd be a terrific Secretary of the Interior.
Sounds good. Bye.
Get off the stage, Tom. You don't have any experience actually working in government. Mm-hmm. It's not working out to have our current president be somebody with no experience in government. It's time to thin the field of Democratic candidates.
Yeah, and while I wasn't watching, I feel like he made some comment about billionaires buying stuff, and that man personally bought himself onto that stage, so it feels kind of like a little tone deaf too.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
When he's talking about, billionaires shouldn't buy things, and earlier in the day we have somebody who bought an ambassadorship by donating $1 million to Trump's inaugural and now is in the middle of this national scandal. Yeah, we need to get rich people out of government who've bought their way in, So yeah, they need to thin the stage. There were some good points, some good questions asked from the all-female panel of moderators.
Kind of sucks that you have to get an all-female panel of moderators before you get a question on paid family leave. But, that's what happened, so we'll take it. I mean, it was very awesome to have an all-female panel of moderators also.
It was. I would have liked to have heard more from Ashley Parker. I love Rachel Maddow, but I felt like it was just Rachel Maddow and Andrea Mitchell and then two other journalists.
Yeah, who were there for...
Yeah. But so towards the end, always towards the end, never at the beginning, they did ask about abortion. Amy Klobuchar got the first question, and her answer was pretty straightforward, talking about codifying Roe, entering the principles of Roe versus Wade into, passed into law by the legislature, signed by the president. What do you think of that?
I mean, it's definitely a good starting point, but Roe is the law of the land now.
Yes.
And lots of people don't have access to abortion care. There's one clinic in many states and a whole bunch of regulations that don't need to be there that are legal under Roe. So it's a great starting point, but it is not the be-all, end-all end point there for sure.
Right. She gave a fine answer talking about 7 in 10 Americans support Roe and over 90% support funding for Planned Parenthood's preventive health services. So, a decent enough answer.
Yes. For the 30 seconds that she has to answer the question too, again, because there's not actually enough time to go in depth into these issues.
And she was answering based on the frame of the question was, what should we do about abortion bans? And so she was answering it directly. The next question on abortion went to Elizabeth Warren. The question was, hey, there are anti-choice, anti-abortion Democrats, including one Southern governor. Do you think that anti-abortion elected officials should be welcome in the Democratic Party? Mm-hmm. What do you think?
I think a really quick and easy answer to that question is absolutely not. That this is a question of bodily autonomy and nobody gets to make that decision but the individual involved. But that was not quite the answer that was given. And it was interesting because she said a lot of good things.
Yes.
She talked about how abortion rights are human rights. And she actually kind of took the Klobuchar thing to the next level of, even if abortion is illegal, rich people, white people will always be able to get it. It's low income people. It's people of color who suffer when restrictions are passed and bans are passed. So I appreciated that context of, the abortion issue in general. It would have been nice to see a slightly stronger hell no on the is there a place for, the platform of the Democratic Party talks about repealing Hyde. The platform is very progressive. The platform excludes those people. Therefore, they don't have a part. They don't believe in the platform. How are they running for office?
Right. And this question comes up all the time. There are op-eds written about it in the Washington Post and many other papers. I don't see this discussion on other topics of, is there room in the Democratic Party for climate change deniers?
Yeah.
Is there room in the Democratic Party for anti-union people? No, because
could you imagine the union's response to a Democrat being on stage going, yeah, I think we could have that conversation?
It would not go well.
No. And so it's just really shocking when you think about all those other progressive things and how that would go over, very badly. But, abortion rights activists are just supposed to kind of sit back and be like, yeah, it's fine. No, it's not fine.
Right. The next question went to Bernie, who did not get. He was on the stage in the previous debate in October here in Ohio. Not everybody got a question on abortion during that one. He did get asked. The basic point of his response is that men need to be standing up and supporting women in this fight. This shouldn't be something that women are doing on their own. I'd coming in as the third person to be asked, the basics of protecting abortion rights have already been answered. Speaking and saying, "Hey, men, let's step up." I thought that was good.
Yeah, definitely. All movements need allies. So yeah, we need, in this whole thing too, men do also have abortions. So yeah, I think we need everybody in this fight.
Right. Yes. On the Transgender Day of Remembrance.
Yes.
Here was some really gendered, language.
It was most definitely very gendered language, and unfortunately, that topic also didn't come up in the debate at all, which was very infuriating.
Yes. Cory Booker finished off this section of questioning, and he tied in issues of reproductive rights and attacks on reproductive rights related to voter disenfranchisement, especially how both of these areas are attacks by Republican leadership onto predominantly people of color. These are attacks that are meant to put restrictions on Black women.
Yeah.
So that was a nice bridge, and then he talked more about voter rights. But
yeah, they're definitely linked. I think that, when we look at, people are constantly asking us, if these polls are right, 70% of people think that abortion should be safe, legal, and accessible in our state. That why do we have these laws passing and everything else? And, we quickly turn to gerrymandering and how bad our districts are drawn. But voter suppression is also a very big piece of that.
Yes.
When people need IDs to vote, when it is nearly impossible to register to vote because you can't get to an office during certain hours to register to vote. All of these pieces of voter suppression really do impact how and who is able to vote. And that's certainly linked.
Right. Cory Booker also had the biggest slam line of the night.
I'd actually just turned my television on to hear this. It was pretty darn fabulous.
Yeah. Joe Biden had made some comments on how he does not quite support medical marijuana.
It was definitely an okay boomer kind of moment.
Yeah. and Booker said, "When I heard that, I thought you were high."
It was. And the look, they actually had split screened it at that point, so you could see Biden's face as Booker said it, and that was even better. This kind of smirky, ooh, I just got burned.
Yeah. It's good.
It was.
Senator Kamala Harris, she did not get a question on this section, but later in the debate, pointed out, and our national partner, NARAL Pro-Choice America, tweeted her quote, where Senator Harris said, "Black women are 3 to 4 times more likely to die in connection with childbirth. Black women make 64 cents on the dollar as compared to all women who tragically make 80 cents on the dollar." The way she phrased that was really good. I like that. So Senator Harris brought up and actually mentioned by name the reproductive justice movement, which I think there's value in having candidates correctly recognize the name of that movement and talk about its values. She did that there. That was a really good section. So
yeah, a really good section and really interesting, especially in Ohio. And we'll probably do this next week on the podcast. But Ohio, for the first time, just released maternal mortality numbers for the last 5 years. We've been silent on it because they've been so horrendous. They didn't want to publish them, I guess.
Right.
And that proved that like 54% of those maternal mortalities in Ohio were preventable during that time frame. So it's definitely an issue that needs to be discussed more.
Right. So, these were some good points of a debate that otherwise
lasted for 2.5 hours. Yeah.
Too long, too many people. It was following the
all day of impeachment hearings. Like if you were like a serious news watcher and watched all that all day long yesterday, you definitely get a gold star because I tuned in and out throughout the day and I'm exhausted by it all.
Gold star. You probably wanted a tequila shot instead.
Yeah. I mean, I did have some bourbon in front of me at that point too, so I'll take that.
So those were kind of the highlights of the debate. One other question that came up was about paid family leave.
Yes.
Of course, candidates on stage in a Democratic debate are in favor of paid family leave. Somewhere yesterday, earlier in the day, where we also heard discussion of paid family leave, was from Democrats in Ohio, in the State House. The minority leader of the Ohio House of Representatives, Representative Amelia Sykes, led her team from her House caucus to discuss a set of legislative priorities that they are putting forward kind of as a response to some garbage by the Republicans, including paid family leave. We don't have that as a law here in Ohio. Hey, Jamie, do you think we should?
Oh, heck yes. Am I allowed to say HEW? Yeah. Okay. But yeah, so, and that was really, so the Ohio Democratic House Caucus launched this Ohio Promise earlier this year during the budget fight to really put forward policies that fulfill what they call the Ohio Promise, that we're going to take care of our people, our families. And so they did a press conference on their family first section of that agenda yesterday. So yes, we started out talking with State Representative Kristen Boggs, talking about a bill that she and State Representative Janine Boyd, who's out on maternity leave right now, actually, have presented to start a paid family leave program in the state of Ohio. It's definitely a first step. It's an insurance program that employers and employees would pay into, but it would provide some minimal amount of support to make sure that people can take the time off they need to have a baby, to adopt a baby, to take care of a sick loved one, while they are, dealing with a health crisis. And that's really, really critically important. The line that I loved the best out of that section of that press conference was when Rhett Boggs was actually talking about how men also benefit from this, because men do want to take time off too.
Yes, we do.
So, this isn't just a maternity leave bill. It is a paid family leave bill so that everyone can take time off when these things happen in a family. It's not all just resting on the woman in the household.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, this is something that's voter support across the board. Yes. It's just that there's a small number of people who don't, and they're all donors to the Republican Party.
Yes.
And so that was the first question that they got was, there's Republican majorities in both chambers of the legislature, are these bills going to move forward? And, I think there is some reality that the Democrats in either the House nor the Senate, they don't have a majority of votes, but they're not going to just give up and roll over. They're continuing to move these issues forward. So it's incredibly valuable that they keep this as part of the discussion.
Yeah.
Even if the bill's not going to pass next week.
Well, yeah. And then that was actually probably the best line of the entire press conference was Amelia Sex's response to that, which was, and if they don't pass, we'll just introduce them in the next General Assembly, and maybe there'll be a different makeup of the General Assembly then.
Right.
Because the people support these, and they're going to support candidates who support these policies. And if Republicans don't get on board, they're going to start losing elections because of it.
Right. The other set of questions that they got was, on the Republican priorities, because we don't see Republican leadership standing there and saying, hey, wouldn't it be great if everybody had paid family leave, if you have a child. So
the party of family values doesn't believe in family values, Gabe?
Apparently not. And so it's even in the headline and the Dispatch coverage. The headline is Democrats tout family-friendly bills versus GOP push for abortion ban.
Yes.
We've got another abortion ban bill.
Of course we do, because, as I've been saying recently, the Republican Party is kind of like the proverbial dog that caught their tail.
Right.
That they passed the 6-week ban, but they still have to gin up their base and piss them off so that they vote for them, because abortion isn't really a policy proposal. It's a gin up your base proposal. So Keller and Hood introduced House Bill 413 last week. It is a total abortion ban that criminalizes not only the medical practitioner providing the abortion, but also the person getting the abortion as well. Creates a new category of murder basically in our state code. So imposes the same crime on abortion as it does murder in the state. So including life imprisonment without parole and the possibility of the death penalty, which is an interesting push because, this is all, Ohio Right to Life statement was basically, we're not behind this bill, but we support the idea behind it because we want all abortions to go away.
Right.
It was nice of them to actually say the truth for once, which they usually don't do. And this has been their goal the entire time, is to ban all abortions, put people in jail, and, make the world, I don't know, really, really bad place, which they think is an ideal place. But what it really does, and we saw it with the 6-week ban too, it really distracts from all of the other stuff that we talk about every other week. And the fact that, all of these anti-science bills about moving ectopic pregnancies, which this bill also contains, by the way, it's part of the health exemption, is that you have to try.
Stupid thing. There's so many both physicians and members of the media. National Samantha Bee did a segment on it. It's not a thing. You're making something up.
And
John Becker.
And what we hear from people who had ectopic pregnancies is that this also gives this false hope idea. Yeah. So many these people were people who got pregnant, wanted to be pregnant, and were crushed to hear that there was no way that this pregnancy was viable.
And terrified that their life is at risk.
So, instead of saying, this is how the world works and it sucks, and we're sorry this is happening to people, we're saying there might be this mythical treatment out there that could save your pregnancy.
Right.
That doesn't exist, and gives false hope to these people that there might be something out there, and, could delay access to care and could delay things to the point where they are facing a life critical complication of pregnancy. So yeah, we're definitely following it. We're definitely tracking it, but it did get assigned to the Criminal Justice Committee, which kind of makes sense because it is really a criminal justice bill. It's not really a health bill. It's not health code. It's all criminal code, but we'll see.
And that's kind of the point is to shift the discussion on abortion from a healthcare frame to a criminal frame. It's to create confusion about the procedure with this, false idea that moving an ectopic pregnancy is a thing that doctors can do, just like how we talked about on our previous episode. Peggy Lehner, Senator Lehner, has her abortion reversal bill.
Yeah.
That's not a thing that doctors do. It's
No.
not approved by the FDA, but they're putting that bill out there to create additional confusion, to stigmatize the procedure, but also make people not quite certain exactly what an abortion is or what it means to get one.
Yeah, I mean, we see it with the bans too, is that people think abortion, the 6-week ban passed and was signed into law. People think abortion is illegal in Ohio.
Right.
So we're constantly having to, put campaigns out there and everything else, reminding people that people can still get access to abortion through the 21st week of pregnancy in Ohio in our clinics. Abortion is still legal in our state.
Right. They don't even need to pass these bills,
No.
but just by introducing them and getting headlines, they're achieving their desired effect of creating confusion and distrust and, uncertainty of, is this criminal?
Yeah.
No, it's not criminal. It's healthcare.
Yeah.
So, yeah, House Bill 413, yet another piece of garbage legislation that unfortunately, just by having people report on it gets them part of the way towards their goal.
And it has 20 co-sponsors.
That's 1/5 of the entire
Yeah.
Ohio House of Representatives.
Yeah. Thinks that people should be thrown in prison for the rest of their lives or face the death penalty for providing or getting an abortion. Yes.
Great. So that's not the only nasty bill in the legislature. Since our previous episode, there was testimony from our side on House Bill 297. That's the tax credit, a kickback funded by taxpayers to benefit donors to the fake women's health centers, crisis pregnancy centers, CPCs, whatever you call it. If you donate $100 to your local CPC, this bill would give you back $50 in cash when you file your state taxes, paid for by us, the taxpayers.
First of its kind ever. There's no other tax credit like this. Like, how many other good things? I mean, we're talking about maternal mortality earlier. Like, maybe we should give tax credits for donations to groups like Root and Birthing Beautiful communities that actually help reduce Black maternal and infant mortality in this state. But no, we're going to give it to these stupid fake women's health centers. So yeah, I testified against it. Sarah Inskeep from Urge testified against it. Terry, who was on the last podcast, testified against it with my favorite line of the day, which was calling these fake women's health centers foxholes of fakery. It did not go over well with the antis, which is always a badge of honor. Right. And then 2 patient stories as well for people who did access abortion care but ended up at these centers before they accessed abortion care and how that impacted how they made their decision and those kinds of things. So it was I think it was a really good group of testimony against the bill. It was weird because it was almost like the committee members had been told to not ask questions. None of the Republicans. I mean, Derek Marin looked like he was gonna explode out of his seat during my testimony. He was shifting, he was getting up, he was so uncomfortable, and then there was no questions. Jenna Powell was the same way. I could see her out of the corner of my eye, doing the same thing. She was angrily looking at her iPad and, but then there was no questions. So it was a kind of strange committee hearing that there were really no questions posed to any of our people except for one of the patients. Yeah. But yeah. Well,
I tell you what, we've got some recordings of the testimony. So let's start off with yours. Here we'll play Jaime Miracle testifying on House Bill 297.
It is completely ridiculous that legislators continue to create special funding mechanisms that divert state resources from real assistance for low-income Ohioans and fund these fake women's health centers instead. In 2017, the Health Policy Network of Ohio released a report on new approaches to reduce infant mortality and stated that housing stability and affordability identified as 2 of their key approaches. Time and time again, this legislature shows that it is obsessed with appeasing a political base to the detriment of Ohio's residents. Over and over again, you've ignored programs that work, like Root and Birthing Beautiful communities, or programs to provide supporting housing services, programs proven to do exactly what you say you want to do, reduce disparities in health, and really start to address our infant and maternal mortality and morbidity crisis in the state. If this legislature wants to continue to do things so they can say they did things, pat yourself on the back, and placate political buddies, by all means, waste additional tax dollars funding these fake women's health centers through taxpayer-subsidized tax scheme laid out in this bill. But if this legislature really and truly wants to address infant and maternal mortality and the racial disparities in health that cause Black women and babies to die at a much higher rate than white women and babies, which I do think is all of your priorities, then we must do things differently. We must look at the evidence. We need to look at what is working, and we need to listen to people in these communities about what they need. Then and only then will we even begin to break down the systems in this country built over the last 400 years that has gotten us to the place we are today. Only then will we start to make progress.
Next up, we have Sarah Inskeep. She's the URGE, Unite for Reproductive and Gender Equity State Organizing Director here in Ohio.
Okay.
When a person has made the decision to have an abortion or to become a parent, they deserve information that is timely, comprehensive, medically accurate, and arms them with the knowledge about the full range of sexual and reproductive health care options. This includes abortion care. Now, this is the exact opposite of what crisis pregnancy centers do. Instead, they deploy tactics that not only confuse but falsely inform people about their pregnancies with the ultimate goal of delaying or pushing abortion care completely out of reach for people in Ohio. Fake healthcare clinics are largely unregulated and have been left to spread misinformation that is culturally incompetent, not inclusive, or comprehensive. Our young people, including our queer and trans, Black and brown young people across the state and in underserved areas, deserve better than this. Our people living in Ohio's counties that have some of the highest rates of infant mortality deserve better than this. The state of Ohio should not be aiding and participating in the dangerous misinformation campaigns in any way, and that includes through this tax credit incentive that is proposed under House Bill 297.
And then the last one we're going to play for you is Reverend Terry Williams speaking on behalf of the Ohio Religious Coalition for Reproductive Choice.
There are thousands of better, more effective, more ethical ways for this committee to decide to spend Ohio taxpayer dollars than by enshrining one immoral industry in a privileged place within the Ohio tax code. There are thousands of better, more effective, more ethical ways to accomplish the goal of supporting infants and new parents that don't require funding lies about medical science and reproductive health. There are thousands of better, more effective, more ethical ways to support sexuality education and pregnancy support that actually teaches comprehensive sexuality education and that doesn't just outright lie about abortion. Of those thousands of better, more effective, more ethical ways available to you as members of this committee, I pray you decide to at least take one of them and leave House Bill 297 where it belongs, on the cutting room floor where all useless paper and really bad ideas fall and fade. Please use some common sense and vote no on House Bill 297.
All right. That's the show for today. We'll see everybody next week.
Bye.
Bye.